Ladies and gentlemen, at this time we would kindly ask if everyone would please turn off or silence all electronic devices. Thank you.
Shalom, everyone. I recently saw Arnie and Roanne at a funeral. Hadn't seen them for a while. They hadn't seen me. And when I spotted his gray mustache, I told him I was jealous, and that's why I grew mine, my beard. There was a time that neither one of us was gray. I remember him in his younger, healthier, joke-telling years. And I know you do too, as you long for that sense of health that he held on to and hopefully appreciated, as I hope we all do when we have it. Today we form a community of consolation. We're here to acknowledge Roanne. Many of you call her Ro, but I'm still used to the old name. You guys were married 52 years, or would have been 52 years, Kanahara. Jason, I call you Jason still. I hear everybody else is calling you Jay. There was a time that I was taller than you were. There was a time that you stood and became a bar mitzvah at our congregation. And many of the people who are here today were here then too, shepherding nachas and sharing the joys of life and family. We reach out as a community to Beth, to the two grandchildren, Jacob and Jordan. And we acknowledge also Arnie's siblings, Marcia with Victor, Neil, and Iris. I lived in the same neighborhood, and I always see Arnie driving his car, and even from a distance, one could know that he was a Yankees fan. And many of you are wearing the memorabilia today in his memory, which I appreciate. Well, I'm a Phillies fan. He knew that, and we always joked about opposing and rival teams. But he was a funny guy. He was well loved. What I didn't know about was the Zadie's wall with the grandson's pictures. Some of those pictures in the collage that I was watching on the closed circuit television. You guys are ball players. You guys have learned well. I offer the first prayer that we say publicly. Well, I will say publicly. Previous, we had a private prayer moment. You saw us create a familial bubble as we tore the ribbons, symbolic of the sense of tearing that is going on in the lives of the immediate family. And as I explained to them, these ribbons are not to be restitched. They are a permanent scar, always remembering Arnie. But the ribbons weren't torn all the way across, because the part that's closest to the heart, in fact, is so filled with memories and connectedness that that part is left itself complete and whole. We come together today, sharing our sorrow, to commemorate the life of Arnie Silver. We recall the blessing of his life. We thank God for all that was good and true in his life, and for the precious memories which shall endure. Eternal God, our Creator, his family and friends are bowed in grief as they seek to dispel the dark gloom which threatens to overwhelm them. Be gracious to those who mourn, for they are in distress. Bless them with your compassion. Ease their burden of sorrow. Send them light and peace. For it is written, fear not, as I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will sustain you with my power. And let us all say, Amen. As is common in many religions in the West, we'll read now Psalm 23, about the Lord being our protector at all times. First, it inserts in Hebrew a short excerpt, and then an interpretation in English. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai ro'i lo echsar, benot desha yarbitzeni, al mei menuchot yanachaleni. Nafshi yishovev, yancheni v'magle tzedek, l'ma'an shemo. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God has me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside the still waters. God guides me on paths of righteousness and revives my soul for the sake of God's glory. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your staff and your rod do comfort me. You set a table in sight of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall abide in the house of the Lord forever. I've chosen a selection to share with you, as I've shared with many members of our congregation. Funerals that Arnie has been present for, from this very pulpit. This is a text from Ben Sirach. He wrote thousands of years ago about the reality of life and death, closure and completeness. I share his words in translation as they echo through the eons. He wrote, we are all destined to die. We share with all who ever lived, with all who ever will be. Cry for the dead. Hide not your grief, do not restrain your mourning. But remember that continuing sorrow is worse than death. When the dead are at rest, let their memory be a source of peace, and be consoled when the soul departs. Death, he wrote, is better than a life of pain, and eternal rest is better than lingering illness. As a drop of water in the sea, as a grain of sand on the shore, our few days in eternity. The good things in life last for a short time, but a good name, a good reputation, endures forever. Before the ceremony, there was a certain happiness at seeing each other, tinged with the sadness of why we're here today. Both appropriate feelings, and both reflected in the book of Ecclesiastes in a sense that all feelings are meaningful and they're correct. For everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak. Indeed, this is a time to speak, and I welcome theoretically his daughter-in-law, but he always called his daughter, Beth, and his two grandsons to please come up. That's Jacob and Jordan. Come up with her, please.
Jason and I had a hard time finding the words to describe what Dad meant to us. None of us are supposed to be here yet. We're not ready. We started writing down all of the memories of Dad, and we quickly realized that we don't have enough time today to say everything that we love and we will miss terribly about him. We will forever miss everything about Dad. The way he would always correct anyone who said I was his daughter-in-law. The way he would take half of a dessert only to go back to eat the rest of it. The way he would always show up with a shirt with a stain on it somewhere. Jacob's wearing one today. The Wicked Witch ringtone that he had for Mom when she called. How he had more pictures of food on his phone than Mom. And how he always needed to test the first sip of my beer to make sure it wasn't poison. Dad taught us so much. How to never say no when it came to family, and how to always be early or you're late. How your friends are your chosen family, and family always comes first. I could keep going on and on about everything we learned from him, but I'm going to end with one of the most important things that we learned from my dad. Don't judge your friends that choose not to root for the Yankees or Giants. But make it clear they better not show up to a Silver House wearing any of their Philly or Boston gear. Marty. Today we're all Yankees fans from my dad. And we love him.
I want to say that my Zadie was someone who I always knew would be in my corner. It didn't matter the fight, I always knew he was there for me. Whenever I would leave for college and we would have a family dinner, he'd always pull me aside and try to throw money in my pocket and just say, just in case, don't tell my mom, don't tell my mom. I remember when I was little, Zadie tried to get me to slow down while eating. It didn't really work, but he would try to get me to say my ABCs in between each bite of pizza at the King of Pizza on the way or on the way home from one of our many adventures, whether it was a museum or one of the many Yankees home openers we went to. There was always this 80 bite. Whenever I got ice cream or some fries, he just had to make sure it was good enough to eat for his boy. I wouldn't want anyone else in the world to be my Zadie. I hope to always make him proud, even though he's not here in person. I will always look up to the stands for my biggest cheerleader. I love you, Zadie.
My Zadie was definitely a character, but a character in his own ways. Whether texting me and Jake to go to lunch, or texting us and saying he loves us, or just talking about the Yankees. My Zadie was the most selfless person. He only cared about caring for others and not himself. I will still send him my at-bats for baseball and my touchdowns for football, knowing that somewhere he will see it and be proud of me. It still hasn't hit me yet about him gone. I still think he's here. I still think I'm going to get a text or a phone call from him wondering what movies are out to go see. I still have the last text he sent me. It says, "My boy, I'm very proud of your accomplishments. Go out and enjoy what you love doing. Practice hard, so let your instincts take over. Play hard, but play safe. I'll be there rooting for you as always. Now go get 'em." All he cared about was making other people happy. I will be playing every snap of football and every pitch in baseball for him. Although I will not see you today, I want to let you know that is because I want to remember you for your silly jokes and your big smile with that mustache and your long story talks about your life. I just wanted to let you know that I love you, Zadie, and I will never forget you.
I'm now honored to call on Iris.
Welcome, everybody. The words are not mine. I am just the speaker, the spokesperson. The words come from Arnie's brother, Neil, my husband, who spent much time putting down some of his thoughts about his brother. And his first memory ever was at age 3 when Arnie was born. My parents placed him in his crib next to my bed. We were poor, so I shared the bedroom with Arnie and my dad. Marcia and our mom slept on a pull-out sofa in the living room. I guess that's where our closeness began and continued through our childhood and adulthood. I remember this very rabbi at our father's funeral, after he got to know us all, that he was impressed at how close we were, sitting shoulder to shoulder in that first row as we are today. Just a few things about Arnie that maybe you didn't know. In the old neighborhood, he was known as Red. Not sure the kids knew his real name. He was an incredible baseball player, and when we had choose-up games, Red was always the first pick. Arnie's love and aptitude for baseball was passed on to his son Jason and his grandsons Jake and Jordan. Summers were never fun for us, but one year our Uncle Irving was able to get Arnie into a sleepaway camp for 2 weeks through the Electrical Union. They ran a camp for impoverished children, and we unfortunately qualified. I was too old, but was very excited that he would have the wonderful opportunity. I remember we took him down to the Port Authority bus station in Manhattan. They put his bunk on the bus, but Arnie was nowhere to be found. I finally found him in the bathroom with the door locked from the inside. The bus left, and 10 minutes later, he came out. He told our parents, "I changed my mind." Arnie had a wonderful sense of humor and can always make me laugh. That is one of the things I will miss most. Lastly, I want to thank Roanne. For the last 51, almost 52 years, my brother had lived a happier, healthier, and more enriched life because of you, and I love you. Thank you all for coming today and allowing us to share a little bit of Arnie with you. We will all miss him.
And now, in the theme of Arnie, the sports fan, I call on Marty Camison to bat cleanup.
Good morning, everybody. those of you who don't know me, wearing anything Yankee would be breaking the 11th commandment. Thou shalt not wear anything Yankee. But in memory and respect to my dear friend, Arnie, this is for you. I first met Arnie in 1982, the year after my family and I joined Beth Tikva. I joined the board of directors as ritual VP, and Arnie was also on the board. He was a 300-pound redhead from New York with a New York accent and a crazy sense of humor. He was wearing a Yankee hat when I first met him, and I instantly disliked him, mainly because I'm a devout Boston Red Sox fan. Sometimes enemies bond better than friends. We formed a strong connection over the years, had many heated baseball discussions. It was really difficult to believe I was friends with a Yankee fanatic. We went to baseball games together, yes, Boston Red Sox games and Yankee games only. Depending on which team won determined bragging rights on the trip home. Arnie decided he wanted to learn the insurance business. So after he got his insurance license, he came to work for me. And when I decided to explore other avenues, he purchased the agency in Trenton and was a very successful business owner until his retirement. Our families became friendly, and we attended many life cycle events together throughout the years. Arnie loved his family. His son Jason was a fanatic New York sports fan, and they had a very special relationship. He never stopped praising Jason's wife, Beth. In his mind, she was his daughter, not his daughter-in-law. And his grandsons, Jacob and Jordan, were his heart and soul, the true big apples of his eye. He was so proud of everything you guys did, and we talked so much about everything with his family. He spoke about his brother Neil, Marsha, his sister Marsha, Iris, and Vic, and your kids. We had many, many, many talks about how much all of you meant to him. After my retirement, I got a job working for a company called the Phone Company, part-time making phone calls to AAA members. It was 3.5 hours a day, Monday through Friday, and it gave me something to do with so much idle time. So of course, the 300-pound redhead asked if I could get him a job with the company. However, by this time, he was no longer a redhead, and he was less than half the 300 pounds. But unfortunately, he was still a Yankee fan. I did get him an interview, and he got the job because a strong member of the phone, and he became a strong member of the phone company family. I would get into the office at 8:15 every morning to get ready for the day, and that started at 9 o'clock. And at 8:30, Arnie arrived every morning, so we could have 20 or 25 minutes of just Arnie and Marty. On occasion, he was late or couldn't come in, and my day just wasn't the same. He certainly left his mark with the office staff. Every person in the office loved him. His strength and resilience impressed everybody, and I know he will be missed by each and every person he worked with. He was the only person that had both an office wife and a desk wife, and many, many brothers and sisters, and many of them are here today. He also touched the owners of the company, Mark and Rob, to the extent that they closed the office this morning so whoever was able could attend this service. They declared today, let's celebrate Arnie Silver Day. Mark, Rob, thank you so much for that wonderful gesture. We all really appreciate it. Arnie and I have always had a very close bond, and over the years we shared many personal things together that will always be kept between us. Arnie was irritating sometimes, but special. He was stubborn, but special. He had a specific time for everything, his haircuts, his car wash, the newest iPhone, but he was special. Arnie would always use the expression when he needed advice or wanted a second opinion, WWMD. What would Marty do? I don't know why I was supposed to have all of the correct answers, but he always prefaced asking for advice by using those letters, WWMD. Sometimes he followed my advice to the T, very rarely. And sometimes he did the complete opposite, most of the time. But as we all know, that was Arnie. He certainly marched to his own drummer. So my dear friend, WWMD, Marty would have said, please don't leave. Don't leave me, it's just too soon. I will miss you and I love you.
One additional memory that I have of Arnie was sitting up at the callers table when we had bingo at the synagogue. There are some old ladies who would come just to hear his voice. They didn't want me to say anything to him, but they were really enamored every time he took over and had a chance to speak. Over the course of the years of Arnie's illnesses, I had written down in my files on my phone Arnie's Hebrew name so that I could use it for Mishiberach prayers. Neil Rubin would remember his Hebrew name at our daily minyan services in the morning. And I hope it gave him solace to know that we were praying on his behalf. No one's going to leave this world alive. But I hope that knowing that this prayer was said on his behalf, it gave him solace, it gave him comfort, it gave him strength, it gave him the ability to look for the quality in life, even though he wasn't destined to have the quantity. So knowing his Hebrew name, I'm going to use a prayer now called the El Malei Rachamim, God who is filled with compassion. And I will be inserting Arnie's Hebrew name. Listen for it. He's Aharon ben David. Aharon, the son of David. And yes, I do remember officiating at his father's funeral. In fact, I remember it was a Saturday afternoon. Neil came up, walking up to my house. Where is he? Not sure if I was going to answer the telephone to let me know that David had died. And would I be available to officiate at his funeral as well? As I am today, I'm sad but honored to officiate it and stood up and supported your family during those difficult times. So I ask you also now to please stand up as I recite this prayer, the El Malei Rachamim, invoking the name of Arnie and our compassionate God. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamtsei Menuchat Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina, B'ma'alot Kedoshim U'Toharim, K'zohara Ki Amazhirim, Et Nishmat Aharon ben David, Shalach Lolamo, Began Eden Tehei Menuchato. Ana, Ba'al HaRachamim, Hastirehu B'seter Knapecha La'olamim, Utzror B'tzror Chaim Et Nishmato, Adonai Hu Nachalato, V'yanuach B'shalom U'mishkavo V'nomar, Amen. O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Arnie Silver, Aharon, the son of David, who has gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. The Lord is his portion. May he rest in the tranquility of shalom, of peace. And let us say, Amen. I welcome you to now be seated with the reminders that the interment is going to be at the Crescent Memorial Park on Route 130 in Pennsauken. Following the conclusion of that ceremony, everyone is welcomed back to Arnie and Roanne's home at 2605 Sagamore. And look for the red tent. That'll help you locate it. They also have Shiva continuing Sunday and Monday evenings at 7 p.m. Any potential contribution in Arnie's memory may be made to the Cancer Society or to the MS Society. We would ask if you would all rise once more, please. Adonai, miyagur v'olecha, miyishkon b'har choshecha, olech tamim b'poel tzedek, v'daber emet l'avo, v'oragal l'shalom, v'asa l'hirra'a, v'kerpa l'nasa al-kovo. Mizeh ve'einav mi'as, et yireh Adonai yechabed, v'yishpa